that said, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the moderator who's got a fun job today, and a sponsor of the panel, Shana England, Chief Advocacy Officer for Vision Strategy. Shana, thank you for agreeing to be the moderator for this morning's panel. Let's give Shana a round of applause.
Thank you, Carlos, and thanks everyone for being in the room this morning. We do have a great panel this morning. The theme is casting your mobile net, so kind of like on the airline. If you didn't mean to be going to casting your mobile net, you should get off this airplane now. But hopefully you won't. I think it'll be a great panel. I want to first again reiterate thanks to AT&T and US Bank for being the gate sponsors and Vons for being our runway sponsor. The biographies for all of us are already in your journal, so we won't go too deeply into that, but I am going to let each of our panelists make a brief introduction of themselves, what their businesses are, what they bring here. I have an opening question for each of them, and then we're really hoping to hear quite a bit from you all. Questions, why are you in the room? What were you hoping to get out of the room today? Ask these great experts on that. And if you don't, I might just start cold calling you. We'll see what happens. So Bridget, I'll let you kick it off.
I'm pretty loud. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, I've got 5 younger brothers. I'm used to yelling. So I am Bridget Ayers. I'm owner of the Get Smart Web, head geek at the Get Smart Web. We are a digital marketing company, work with small, medium, large companies. I like to train, speak. I do a lot of training with the chambers in the area. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Hi, my name is David Chow. I'm an architect at Microsoft. Microsoft's a large company. You guys probably know what we do. I'm actually based in Los Angeles, so my job is working with the companies in the ecosystem, Southern California, and to help them build solutions using our products.
Hi, I'm Eric Wise, and I'm the president of ISBX. We're a mobile application development company. We started off 10, 12 years ago, me and my key partners doing large-scale web development projects. And in the last 3.5 years, we really have been focusing on the mobile world. We've done over 100 applications for some of the biggest brands and a lot of mid to small companies as well. So, we'll go through this, and if you have any questions after, feel free to talk to me or Brian, and we'll give you more information.
I'm guessing all of us probably can project well enough for you to hear us, but the video team in the back has asked us to use the microphone. So we're not yelling at you, but hopefully also not ignoring the folks on the live stream. So we'll come back in this order, and we'll start with you, Eric. Can you give us an example of a mobile app that's just been wildly successful? What's your favorite mobile app story?
We've done so many, but for the entertainment brand stuff, we did the Happy Feet 2 app. So it's the IP on that's great. Everybody wants that. It's done millions and millions of downloads. Was in, called out on iTunes multiple times. Was in the top 10 in the first 2 weeks. It just did crazy for a free app. And then we did Vampire Diaries, which is continuing season after season to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Real good win for us. But the stuff that really excites me is the mid-sized business. The apps to help mid-sized businesses succeed and to go a little further than they've gone online, but to give them those tools to go a little bit further. So we have a good example is Pasco Systems, where we're doing education software. They are not a huge company, but they are a good-sized company. They do about $50 million a year worldwide, and they sell education software for the desktop. And so they came to us to bring this onto the mobile application. So we migrated it to iOS and to Android and currently to Microsoft. And we also, the next phase is going to be for HTML5, so they can have a lot more options and how to take that a little further. And believe me, this is very advanced development. There's over 30 sensors that connect through Bluetooth and through USB if the tablet allows. And it's basically for life science and physics experiments. So sonar, temperature, wind speed, and it allows people in the classroom to do this. The funny thing is, in the US they sell well, but they do great overseas. They actually sell a ton in Saudi Arabia. Kazakhstan has become a very big client of theirs recently. It's funny, the joke behind that is after Bharat, they're like, we really have to step up our game. And they spent a great deal of money. The entire school system's on their software. And so they're growing aggressively, and our software is what they're using. So that's some of the stuff that we do.
Great. Thanks, Eric.
Sure.
And David, we'll come back to you at this point. And can you talk a little bit about what products are available for businesses to maybe build their own apps?
That's a really big question for now. There's literally all kinds of things we can use. The way I look at the landscape for the mobile app development scene today is almost like 10 years ago when we were talking about should businesses build websites. right? We're at a point with mobile applications too, and the ecosystem for or the products and tools and everything around building these applications in the mobile landscape are exploding. Just like today, we have just about everybody knows how to build a website today. We're very soon going to be at a point where everybody knows how to build mobile applications. And to think about products, right? So maybe we think about phones as the first landing point for our products. But one thing we know, iPad has changed the world a lot in terms of how we work too, right? So it's not just the phone that's changed, but also the way we work. All three of us have a tablet device here today. The way that we work, that we mobilize our workforces, that we travel around the region outside of our office, outside of our home, and how the kind of the professional life and the personal life merges on these single devices, right? Because we could do both things on our lives today, whereas traditionally we had a work device, a computer, a laptop, or a desktop, and then we have iPad that kind of carry both sides of our lives. But increasingly, we're going to have devices that converge all those things together. So the big point I'm trying to get to is the landscape for mobile application development or products that we use are still changing very rapidly. This is what you see right now, but there's also all kinds of stuff coming down the pike for more innovation in the space. In terms of tools and products, there's all over the place. There's not one thing that really unifies them together right now. Most of them are proprietary per platform. So iPad has iOS and their own platforms. Microsoft have our own. One thing that unifies together is what Eric just mentioned, HTML5. So that's one thing we kind of, at this point, we have to consider is there's a large debate about whether it's a native app development versus a web app development. Because as HTML5 matures and the products and tools and frameworks and best practices around that technology matures, people are going to probably try to do a lot more HTML5 development, because then you can build a web app that runs across all of these different devices, as opposed to thinking, I have to build one for iOS, build one for Android, and build one for Microsoft, and then maintain those over the time. Right? But there are benefits to both. So it's still a trade-off at this point. And right now, the jury is still out in terms of which one is more appropriate for everybody. I would say both have advantages and disadvantages. Not every single application would be, or not one technology will work for all the applications. Right? So it's about understanding trade-off and then figuring out what's the best for you. But we're still at a point where it's changing a lot. So I think it's not a wise thing to say that or make general statements about one thing over another for now. We're just in that transition stage where things are still in flux, things are changing very quickly. But we'll see that I think the mobile world really is the future.
Great, thanks, Eric. And Bridget, actually, it's a good segue, I think, to the question for you, which is, while mobile might be the future in the right now, do businesses always need a mobile app, and how do you think about counseling businesses what to do in the mobile space?
You know, and actually, it is good that we kind of went in this sequence, because you have the app builder, you have Microsoft, and he gave you a great answer. And I work with Large, Legoland's one of our clients, and they have an app. And I think that it's important for them to have an app because it's about the experience. So when people walk into that space, they expect it. But then we also work with small and medium clients, and those businesses, the buzzword is always Bridget. They come to us and say, hey, we need an app. And I say, what's your budget, what's your time, and what are your resources? And for small businesses and medium businesses, I find that most of the time they don't need an app yet. The structure is changing. Do we do an iPhone and an Android app? And then are we spending our resources marketing the app and not marketing our brand? And for me, the mobile, the first thing that I want people to understand about mobile is, first, your website needs to be responsive. So let's build a responsive website that can hit all these platforms till we figure out if HTML5 or what the coding language is. And then the next thing for me is, mobile to me is about being in real-time communication with clients, prospects, knowing what people are saying. I am that Twitter gal. I love Twitter. I love being on. I I spend way too much time on Twitter. So he was right. I will be tweeting. Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and these platforms are great because you guys share too much information. I love it. As a marketer, you tell me what you like, what you don't like, and what we want to train businesses to do is to jump into that conversation. And I don't want to wait for you to come to my business and then give me a recommendation. I want you to check in and endorse me right when it's happening. I want the restaurant owner to see the check-in, walk up to the table and say, hey, thanks for checking in. You know, here's an appetizer, or hey, that was great, or I'm glad you're having a great experience. So mobile apps are important. I think mobile is the future. I mean, we have 6 billion devices now, mobile devices that have sold in 2011. We know that this isn't going anywhere, but mobile to me is a lot more than just an app. It's about being real time and in the now, knowing who's saying what and being part of that conversation.
Thank you. So before we move on, I just want to get a sense of who's in the room. In terms of business folks in the room, how many of you are in a business that has or is in the process of developing a mobile app? So a few. How many of you have a mobile strategy separate from an app? Okay.
We're going to convert you all.
That's right. So there's a lot of growth to happen here. So I have a list of questions I can pose to the speakers, but would love to know what, let's toss it out to you first. What are you wondering about? You're in the room. You must have some questions.
Can I ask you? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Crystal. I'm here from Woodbury University. I also have a small private consulting business where I do a lot of virtual training using the GoToMeeting app. And I wonder who would be the best. I've spoken with a marketing agency to talk about designing company branding for this particular business, but I wonder if I were to develop an app, what would be the most appropriate? Would it be for brochure, would this be training courses, or would it be something more engaging or interactive for training participants? What would be the best approach?
Do you want to?
You know, there's you could go a number of ways. You need to kind of do a needs analysis with you. I'm sure Bridget would speak to that real quick. But at the end of the day, you want to figure out what your budget is and what can you get for your budget and what do you think you get the most out of your budget. What's the ROI going to be? Are these people going to use it as a utility to kind of understand where they need to be or what they're doing at your school? And as far as the interactivity goes, you know, what does that function? Does it pull from an existing website? Is there some kind of feed that could bring that in content in? Or is it just, you know, bells and whistles like, I'll reference the Happy Feet 2 app. It's really silly, doesn't do a whole lot. It's just an animated thing, but it took forever to do this animated experience. It's very interactive, but they loved it and they downloaded it like crazy. And then in the second phase, we tied in second screen components that there's, you know, it's a big data dump back on the parent company. So at the end of the day, I think you first look at your budget, then you look at your what you feel are the needs to have, and then you could possibly, if budget allows, experiment to see if you could get a bigger draw with interactivity. But I think the social communication is key. You know, how do you spread it? How does it get out there? How does everybody know you have it? So whether it's, you know, through Facebook, Twitter, any kind of post that you could do. I'm visiting the campus right now, and, you know, we're just riffing because I don't really know your business. But, you know, whatever it is, at the end of the day, you want to close the loop on making sure you hit social if you need to share it with everyone, making sure you're getting your ROI. So if you invest in it, what are you getting back? You know, like you said, not everybody needs to build an app right now. I was telling these guys, I get 5 to 6 calls a day about app development, and about one of those seems like a realistic, viable opportunity. And then during the week, we look at them all, and I think maybe 2 during the week. So I'm like, you know, that's 20 a week, or, you know, 25 a week, and I think maybe 2 are really serious opportunities. And then once a month, I get a great opportunity for a great new client. You know, really. So there's so much interest, so much activity. It's crazy. But we have to be, you know, honest back with the clients and say, I don't know if this is right for us, and here's why. You know, I don't know if it's right for you. In my opinion, I would maybe just do a mobile website. You know, like we said with HTML5, one thing I wanted to hit on that real quick is that HTML5 solves a couple needs right now, and I know nobody really knows what's perfect and what's the best way, but one of the things that's great about it is the formatting, so that you could format on any device and it will automatically. Android has 4,000 SKUs we're tracking for one of our apps. 4,000. How do you make something optimized for 4,000 devices? You can't. So HTML5 does that automatically. We'll optimize, and we could build a shell that makes it look like a native app and use some of the native features, for Android or iOS or Microsoft. And then the HTML5 is underlying, and it kind of feeds, but it needs to have a connection, you know, how you do it. So there's so many questions that need to be answered. It really starts with like a needs analysis of what makes sense for you.
I'm gonna also say with Eric, when a company is thinking about spending, and apps aren't inexpensive, and you're thinking about spending that money, first you have to look at your target, your audience, and their age, how technical they are. And for me, an app is, again, about increasing the user experience or helping them do something that will benefit them. So if you're training, and you're training through GoToMeeting right now, and I think there are a lot of opportunities. I use GoToMeeting as well, but you know, they were kind of the last. There were some other platforms that brought in the video chat feature where you could have more video chatting. So for me, I like that I can video chat. You know, David was on a conference call. Sorry to out you. He was on a conference call earlier, but I like the ability to be able to go in on any meeting, no matter where I'm at, to step out, pop it in, and I can even video chat. So an app like that, if you were going to use it for the training, would be very expensive. Now, if you're using the app so they can, you know, get up to date, I would tweak my website so that way it can be viewed on a mobile platform. I can see the schedule. I can sign up right there. That's not an app. So for me, I think you know, money. It's all about money, and it's about my end user, and are they going to benefit from it?
Mm-hmm. Any other questions in the room? And Bridget, I think you had wanted to jump in before that one.
No, go ahead.
Just talking about it seems like in the mobile universe now, there's a lot of clutter. There's apps, there's the, you know, Facebook, there's all the social media, there's web, there's a lot of way for any consumer to have direct access, like you're talking about, to the brand. What have you guys seen as some of the best practices trying to cut through that and have the most meaningful direct relationship with the customer?
I could. Well, I would say, for me, I think geeks are pretty cool now, right? It used to be in school you weren't that cool, and I was an undercover geek in school, by the way. So, and I like to call them badass intellectuals now. I saw a little button, geek is the new badass intellectual, so I'm a badass intellectual. But it starts with, honestly, listening. So whenever we start with a brand, first, you know, we like to look at the industry leaders, we like to look at the competitors, and we do spend a lot of time and money just on listening tools. We want to hear what people are saying online. So the first and foremost, you need to own your brand online, and then you need to start using tools, and your basic tools are Google Alerts and things like that, but then you can step it up with a Radian 6 or a Brandwatch, and basically we start looking for your brand mentions, but also your industry, your product type, your service type, your competitors, and we start to devise a strategy where we're looking at the sentiment, we're looking at what people think, what they want, what they don't like, and by using one tool and pulling in Twitter, Facebook, blogs, forums, and then it's time consuming. Again, this is where geeks are cool, because we like sifting through that data, and we start to come up with a chart and say, okay, here's our strategy. This is who we want to talk to, this is their age, this is what they do, this is where they're located, this is what they think, and then we come in with, you know, something that you're going to feel. What's your name?
Mason.
Mason. It's like I'm talking right to you. You're going to be like, oh my God, I just put this on Facebook and look at this company. They're answering that need that I have. And that's what Microsoft tries to do, Apple. You know, it's great when a company responds to you online. I love it. I check in at a hotel and they're like, thank you for checking in. I feel like a superstar. And I know what they're doing. They don't care about me. Well, except I stayed at the Ayres Hotel. It's Ayres. I tried to pretend I was one of the owners. But I said, yeah, they just misspelled my name. So that's what people want. They want to know that you're listening, that you're out there, and I don't think you should let anybody control your brand. So if you're out there listening, paying attention, and accessible, that's how you do it. You listen and then you get in on there. Are you on Facebook?
I am.
Is your company on Facebook?
Yes, we are.
And what do you use to manage all of your Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that?
I'm not sure exactly. I'm I'm not in that department to oversee.
So you should organize too. You know, like you use Outlook, right? For email, you should use a social media organizer. And there's a couple good ones out there. Maybe Microsoft will develop a better one now that I have his ear. But Sprout Social is a good one. It's a little more expensive than Hootsuite. There's Hootsuite, there's CodeTweet, there's Sprout. And Radian6 actually was bought by Salesforce. And so they integrate really well with your CRM system, so you can actually do it from there. So organize and put that geek hat on is what I would tell you, Mason. And they might have some other advice.
No, I think, you actually hit it pretty well. She's definitely from the consulting side. She knows how to wrangle the social environment.
I'm a cyber stalker.
Well, I could probably chime in a few more points. So exactly what Bridget was saying, in terms of best practice, she actually wasn't mentioning devices or technology, right? Actually, developing or designing for mobile applications, it's about, like she said, it's about enabling that real-time engagement model. So a lot of times when you design an experience, it's not about how do I write the code or what technology I use. First of all, is really look at the user experience, because now it's very different than before, where we build a website, it's just fitting a page and on the screen that everybody looks at the same way. But now with mobile applications, there's so many different things you can throw into it. There's the social aspect. We carry these devices around all day. The way we engage with information on these devices are a lot different than keyboard and mouse on a browser. Right? So there's one best practice that we always say is design about user experience first and figure out what really is beneficial for your business for that real-time engagement model. It might not be everything that you have in terms of the content. Sometimes it might be something completely different. Maybe, just like Bridget was saying, if you have a lot of content, might not be the best thing to put the content in the web app or mobile app. It might be better to enable social interaction as opposed to providing content, because these things aren't that good for reading content, but they're really good for engagement. Right? So there's different things to think about. But ultimately, mobile applications or mobile platforms, they're not that magical thing that changes the world so significantly. It's still a tool at the end of the day. It's about figuring out what's the right thing to do with the tool to create benefit for your business. Right? So sometimes it might not be some things that you want to do, but it's about figuring out the right thing. It's not what you can do, it's what you should do. Right? So that's probably some of the things that we think about today.
So I'm going to take moderator's privilege for a second, and then we'll come back to questions from the audience. But Jacob Nielsen, a usability expert, just did this big study looking at how people actually visit, how people get information on their phones, and actually the vast majority of people are just using the browser on their phones to go to a mobile website, as opposed to an app, and then maybe downloading an app from that website. But particularly within certain demographics, they're not actually going to these things on websites anymore. They're on their computers, they're going to websites on their phones. And he followed that up with a study and found that about 60% of websites, just in a random survey, big businesses, small businesses, nonprofit organizations, the gamut, didn't have a website that was, never mind optimized for mobile, but even usable, really, on a mobile device. So you take those two data sets, most people are visiting the brands that they care about online on their mobile browser, and most of those websites aren't useful for them. So given that that's kind of still where we are, how do we think about, for businesses of all sizes, to make that transition from, you've probably invested quite a bit in being great on a browser from a computer. Have we invested, should we still invest in that website that looks good and is usable on a mobile device, or should we leapfrog that at this point and go straight to, pretty soon everyone's going to be on apps, and that's how we should think about it? But how should we consider that conundrum there?
Yeah, perfect example for that is one of our clients is Cars for Causes. They're like the inventor of the car donation charity. They're out here in Ventura, and we've built in this comprehensive back-end system and all this, tracking of data and seeing how people coming in through search, helping them with their PPC. So we have this whole plan, and then we started noticing about a year ago that mobile usage was climbing and climbing and climbing. We're like, oh, well, we got to make sure the site's viewable, mobile, site, and when we need more features, we need more features. And then it got to where now they're getting about 45% of their donations through the phone or their inquiries. So it's great because people are like in their driveway, like, man, I got to get rid of this car. It's like this, this thing's rusting out in my front yard. And so for them, it was an easy leap, and they came to us. They're like, we should do an app. And we're like, no, you shouldn't, because we have search that we're doing, and we could show that we just need a mobile app. And at the end of the day, it's just sending an inquiry, and then the people on the other line are like, hey, we want to help get your car out of your driveway. So for them, first instincts, like everybody else, I need an app. But at the end of the day, we've helped their business greatly by just making sure that they're, mobile friendly.
Right.
That's a good point. I'm a teacher at Granada Hills Charter High School. We are a charter school, and we're actively looking for donations. It's very expensive to run a school. Is an app what we could look at for something like that, social network donations, or should we stay with the web that we have? What kind of nonprofit applications do you see?
I'll just jump in real quick, because I've been doing a number of nonprofit applications, and at the end of the day, it's to drive donations and charity, but it depends on the business. Like the Arthritis Foundation, we built this application to track your daily habits and how it leads to gout. And it's a tool. It's great. It's got sliders and all this stuff, and if you don't get rest, you drink a bunch of red wine, and you're eating meat, then my toe hurts really bad. And and there's a lot of it's a type of arthritis. So that's been downloading great off their site as a tool, right? But then they ask, they're like, hey, give back. We gave you this for free, but give back. And it's just part of their tool sets that they give people. So for them, it makes sense because you gave them a tool. It's not, and then not overtly asking for a donation, it's part of the messaging, right? Or for, we did an app for the Make-A-Wish, and they were one of the partners, and we, with a partnership with another company, created a great piece of content. It's the Cowboys and Aliens, the kids app, and half the money goes to them. So they found a partner who wanted to try and promote that movie, but it's the prequel for the movie. It's people that own the IP for the movie. It's a long story, but it's a great kids book. And so half the money that comes in on that goes to the charity. So they figured out a way how to raise funds off of content. So those are tools that lead to donations. For someone like you, and you have a base of people that are out there, and you can have it on the site, you can make it mobile. You may not need it, unless you have a tool that you want to use as bait. We often refer to it as bait or data bait, or there's various reasons why you have an app. These days it's becoming more of a bait situation because you're trying to draw them into some other kind of engagement. But if you have a website that does that function right now, I would just make sure that you're very, it comes out real nice on your phone. It's web friendly or mobile friendly.
Can I ask what's the demographic for who donates?
Actually, we're looking for everybody in the area. Of course, the primary is parents, alumni, but also businesses in the area, and actually across the nation. So
I find, first, you need to find your best donors and your best army. So whether the students are your army, and they're the ones who are going to get out there. But when anybody tells me that their client is everybody, you can't talk to everybody. So you have to kind of group them together. And if it's, when we're talking about the big organizations like Make-A-Wish or Livestrong, which is going through some controversy right now, but those organizations, they have the brand recognition, and app would be good. For others that are smaller and trying to grow, I like to use more grassroots, but social roots. It's interesting, Facebook, you have causes on Facebook, and when a friend donates, you see it, right? And then that kind of, well, maybe I should be donating. I mean, you get that, okay, what have I done lately? And you do kind of spur that competition a little bit, and you can create a website that shows your donor goals and highlight those big donors, and then like Eric said, make that a mobile-friendly site that's responsive to the web browser, so I see the donate button. But it's always about showing me your goals and how you're reaching those goals and helping me get excited about that. And then with the kids, gamification is really popular right now. So, spurring them on to have that ownership, but then if I were to do something, it would be in stimulating them to get to your to your other people. But if you're going corporate, they don't care about apps. These execs aren't doing that. You're going to go a different way. And if you're going after parents, you're going to hit Facebook, and you're going to hit those social platforms to guilt their other friends into donating also.
Guilt and competition.
Yes, those are the two.
Guilt, competition, and no privacy. That's what we love as marketers.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
And I was gonna pile on too. It's exactly I was gonna say. Start with understanding your audience, and then figure out what's the best engagement model with them. So, for example, when you build a mobile app, you might not have to transacting through it. It might be more about building awareness with your brand, and then you transact through the website. For example. So you could figure that out, but it's about leveraging the tool correctly, not to do everything.
And you can use just basic text, by the way, to let them donate. And we know that that was big with Katrina, and we know that that being able to text in a donation very quickly. I don't have to be techie. We all know how to text. I know you guys do. Text is up. So maybe doing that platform, working with a provider, and allowing people to text in, especially at your big events, where you could say, all right, did you know you could text in a donation, $1, $2, right now? Get them right in the moment. It's about being in the moment.
Yeah, I just want to hear David say something again so we can pick it up on the camera.
Sorry, my apologies.
Not a problem.
I will do this.
I don't even hear what you said, though. I heard half of it. It was great.
Can you
Oh, reiterate what you said.
Reiterate. Oh, my apologies. So I was saying the best practice obviously is exactly what Bridget was mentioning, that first of all is understanding your audience. And then once you understand your audience, you figure out what's the best engagement model for that audience against the metrics that you want to create as advantage to your business. And a lot of times it doesn't mean that the first thing that comes to your mind, which is actually transacting through the app to get donations. That might not be the right thing to do with your app, because it depends on how you actually want to engage with your audience. Sometimes it might be just about raising brand awareness, and then that drives other behaviors with your audience.
I think we had a question over on the end here. Yes.
I just want to know, are the QR codes passé at this point in time, or would you still recommend that as a drive to the website or on the app?
Anyone want to talk about QR codes?
There's been a lot of talk about it, and we actually have worked with a couple clients, Nike being one of them, to where we use the logo. So we don't need a QR code, but you have to have the app to read the logo. So there's this whole catch-22. It depends on what you're using it for. So we could just scan anybody's logo with our technology in there, and it will automatically lead you to whatever act you need, whether it's video, whether it's a game, whether it's an augmented reality experience. So it's just more about scanning logos. Now, a lot of ad agencies and friends of mine that are art directors, they hate the QR code because they do this great ad, and then they just throw this ugly blight on top of it, is what I've been told, because we worked with those guys. Are you going to put that thing on top of my ad? And and it's just part of it. But if the adoption of QR codes and the readers, and so you have to have the QR code reader on your phone for one, and you start running around, you're using it, then maybe it makes sense. You have to understand what your audience is about, and if they use it, then yeah, it's not a bad thing. But if you're trying to do it organically, and you have, one of the campaigns we ran where you have the app that you've gotten from the brand, and you could run around, and there's a point system. You're like, how many times can you find our logo in this town? And it knows where GPS location is, and you're kind of hunting down logos, and they're being engaged and interacting with your brand, and it opens up different things. You're on number 4, number 10, number 12, so it will tell you as you go. So you can do a lot of really interesting things outside of QR code, but at the end of the day, if your users are using the QR readers, and there's a bunch of them out there, and they already have it on their phone, that's the big leap, is to get it on the phone that they use and they know to use, then yeah, it's viable.
I have a second part to what you mentioned to the gentleman from Granada Hills, is that I work for a nonprofit healthcare clinic, and we investigated the cost of having a texting donation device, and there was a monthly subscription. So do any of you have a cost-effective method where you might find a company that provides the services less?
That was our experience too with the text for donation. It was expensive. It was cost prohibitive. I would, if you want to be simple, I would put a PayPal link, or you have a payment gateway. But PayPal's great, and it's super simple, and most people, it's starting to become ubiquitous. Everybody's got a PayPal account. I'd like it. I just boom, done. And so you can integrate that just as, easily into a mobile app or a mobile website as a way to make a quick transaction or to help people, as a fundraising tool.
There are also ways that you can do the text to donation without having it go directly to a donation. So I'm looking at my friend Glenn Kritzner, who dragged me to a City Year event. He didn't drag me; it was awesome. A City Year event, and all the kids are dancing, and somebody sends up and says like, text right now to make an additional donation. And like, I'm going to do that right now. More money than I probably should, and I'm texting it. And what it was it texted to a phone number that put my phone number in a list for me to get a call from a volunteer to ask for my credit card the next day. And it took a significant amount of follow-up. At least I'm confident that I'm probably not out of the norm, in that she called me once and I was in the car, and she called me the next day and I didn't have my wallet on me, and took 3 calls to get my credit card, but she got it. And so it was the same notion of that real-time text to make a donation, but without the subscription fees and all that of the technology. So an example of it's the strategy, which is you really want to have that, real-time act while you're feeling it sort of thing, because I never would have gone home and logged in and made that contribution without the technology cost behind it.
Well, and I will say, we had a client do almost the same thing. So when you text in your donation, the text came back with a link. You click the link right then. And then the link, you could either use the credit card right then, or you could use the PayPal. So it sent you to something right then that was mobile friendly, and you did it right then. So the calling, that's great. I would maybe, I don't know, people might get a little nervous. Are you really the right people that I should be giving my card to? But that's how they did it because of the cost. But I would just say, Google, I'm so sorry. Google or Bing. Everything I own is Google. So I feel bad about saying that because I say Google it all the time. It's like a verb. So Bing it. And just start looking for, there are all sorts of different organizations, different applications that integrate really well. Because crowdfunding is pretty big right now too. So I find a lot of sites out there that are making it easy to set up a donation platform. And I can't think of the one. I had a buddy who was raising, it was 12 for 12. And he was trying to raise $12,000 a month for 12 charities. So, and he was using mobile platforms, and one specific mobile platform to show us what was being donated, and then also to be able to donate from, anywhere from the web. So just start looking around. There are a lot of companies out there that have these nice platforms. Do you guys have anything? Any good kind of?
I think you said it well.
Yeah, okay. So Bing it.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm here today representing Grand Rapids Charter High School, but I have a question. I'm also part of Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. I'm a youth representative, and I noticed that when I was campaigning that there isn't a lot of name recognition for neighborhood councils because it is a new system of it's community government. Like the community can go to this neighborhood council and they can tell them their problems, and they go to their congressman, and that it's a really great system. But I was wondering what you suggest, because I was recently given the outreach committee. I'm going to be the chair for that, and we have a website, we have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter account. But I was wondering, how do you get the name recognition for these new, like neighborhood council or just these new businesses? What's the best way to get name recognition?
I'm going to say a dirty word here, okay? And it's, it's a couple dirty words, but the marketing mix, okay? Print is not dead. That's my dirty word, print, okay? So I think I never tell clients to throw all your eggs in. So, whether it's grassroots where you're kind of going out, doing events, doing some print material, but what you have to do is make sure that everything comes together. So all of the things that you put out there. So when you're creating your brand and the name, again, it's always about the audience. Who are you hitting first? Are you going young to older, older to younger? So that way when you're creating this brand presence, who does it appeal to? and then you're going to use a lot of things, because it always surprises me, and that was a good question about the QR code. Everything reads on my face, so I'm not sure if you saw me go on the QR code, but the biggest problem with QR codes was that middle piece. Nobody knew that you needed a reader, so they're putting their phones up there, and now they're getting mad. Hello, hello. It's supposed to do something. And then the second thing people did is they made it horrible by sending you to a boring place, a sales place. Nobody wants to be sold. It's got to be fun. Now, Eric has a fun job. I mean, he really does. He works with fun companies. I'm jealous. So going around, a young person would go around and find a Nike symbol. That would be fun. It would be cool. But now would a 55-year-old person run around looking for Nike? No, they're not going to do it unless they're, I don't know, collecting some Jordan thing. But, so you have to figure out, who am I trying to get the message out to, and what would they like? So if they're older, we need to put out maybe some brochures and get them going online and liking us on Facebook and kind of pull it all together. Make sure that maybe you have some T-shirts, some fun things, you know. A good thing, we work with a mall, and what we wanted the mall to do, and this is a little crazy, but Red Bull has done it and things like that, is to get, you can get a mobile router. So it's either Bluetooth, and basically what it does is somebody would wear it as they're going around to an event, and it would ping phones and say, hey, you know, if you want this offer, or if you want this free Red Bull thing. So that was kind of a cool idea where I could accept it or not, and then I would see this cool, you know, video from them. So for me, it's about getting creative and then using the platforms to get to the different audiences to try and get the recognition out there. So you might have T-shirts, you might have print, and then you might have some cool web stuff that you're doing. Facebook's your best friend, though, in my opinion. You know, get that going really, really well. Do you do YouTube videos too?
We haven't done any YouTube videos.
Get out there.
Webmaster and all that. But
you're very articulate, so get out in the community with your phone. That's why these phones are so awesome. Live stream it, you stream it, do your Google Hangout and stream it to YouTube, and be the guy on the street. Let me tell you what we do. And go around interviewing people, talking to them, put that on Facebook, and then they'll start tagging themselves and say, yeah, I'm not sure if this kid is for real, but he says we have some organization around here. So that might be fun. And the more fun you have with it, the more that we think it's fun, the more we'll engage and say, wow, this kid is doing some great stuff around here, and kind of go with it. Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. Facebook is your best friend. They establish persistent connections, engagement with. It's not just a one-off thing. Videos are very visual. People love to watch videos, right? So those are really good tools to start with. And then you can start, just like Bridget said, how to bring everything together and that actually builds your brand. Once you have a brand awareness, then you can leverage it to do things.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Yeah?
I do have another question. It's about ethics. And recently a teacher from, I think, the CS system or UC system was sued because he sent political thing on state property, state email. Is there a discussion at each of your levels about what's ethical, how using these things can become litigious?
Yeah, all the time. Especially when you work with a brand and if you give them a communication channel. So like with even silly stuff like we did for Turner Classic Movies, we did a guide of Hollywood homes and famous film locations. So it's kind of a cool thing. You could cruise around LA and find out where stuff is, and then you could rate it, and then you could comment on it. So the commenting tool, at first it was like, I'll just let them do it. But the thing is, you have to log in through Facebook, and Facebook automatically makes everybody say, "Oh, maybe I probably shouldn't say something stupid because my friends are going to see that." So we ran with that at first, and Turner Legal was fine with it. Then we decided we got to still get a couple weird comments, so we went in and created a screening layer. So it would have to go through the screening process and then put up. So a lot of times you just want them to talk, and it depends on the venue that you're creating. But we just had one or two troublemakers. Same thing we did it for FX Networks years ago. We had to have a whole 24-hour team on it because somebody got really crazy on the Shield, board, and for that TV show, The Shield, way back. And we literally employed people around the clock to just screen everything because they wanted their boards to keep moving because there was a lot of chatter going on. But it turned out a lot of the chatter was because they were getting so mad at each other, and it was a lot of communication. It wasn't great for the brand, right? But it was that type of show that had an edge to it. But for brands that want to protect themselves, Honda, they were just the iron fist of communication. Like, it was one way only. They didn't want it. There was things called the Tread Act, and the Tread Act, if somebody's tire falls off their motorcycle and they report it on a website, they have to do a full legal review on it, and became a big issue and stopped a lot of growth for communication. And then over the years, they backed off of that and had a couple things come in. But it was, all the way down the line, no matter what client it is, the number one thing is, don't put me in a bad position by allowing the community to talk to me. But at the same time, if you don't allow the community to talk, it's this fine balance, I'm sure.
Good.
Yeah, I was just going to pile on. That is the case for our company today. Social and mobile applications allow us to engage more, but that also, as companies, exposes more. The web's littered with stories of one tweet that almost brings down the brand. Progressive Insurance just a couple of weeks ago, and then there's Urban Outfitters too. There's a couple of really famous stories. So companies really do have to be really diligent about training, in a way, the employees and the people that maintain the brand, or everybody that has a presence, to be careful about what they say, and then how they actually engage with the audience. I'm sure Bridget actually probably has a lot more to add in there.
Well, I find that some companies go extreme. So their social media guidelines or policies that go with their company policies are very extreme. And then you have other companies that maybe their communication policy is one sentence, go have fun. What I would say is, one, you always want to get a little legal counsel. You don't have to spend the money that the large companies do, but you do need to know the rules and what you can and can't do. And David's right. It starts with educating your employees, giving them guidelines that are consistent and legal. You actually, we have some precedents that's been set on what you can actually be fired for, and how you use that. And this isn't new for us because email, there have been huge lawsuits over email before this. So one, it starts with getting the right knowledge legally on what you can and can't do in your state. And how you do that. And then the second is education. And the third for me is always, again, motivation as well. Motivating that, if you're out there communicating and opening up these real-time channels, you're helping the company, the brand, and, we're all working at this together. And then the last is privacy. You should be talking to your employees about their privacy anyway. I mean, we share too much information, and when it comes to kids, way too much information. So you'll be protecting them on multiple levels. And then I do find that companies do it once. Let's have one conversation, they walk away. But we know that these platforms change on a daily basis, and one conversation's not enough. So reiterating and having things like this where I can ask you questions about how the platform works, what I can and can't say, is this okay? I just noticed this. So making sure that with your staff, your teams, that you are always talking about these platforms and what's going on and how to lock them down. How to lock them down. I have had a lot of stories, and companies have hired me to investigate their employees online. So, to make sure their brand is, and the legality behind that, check that, so you guys know what you can do there. But it's interesting what employees feel is appropriate to talk about. Like, we did have a client who was they were in the golf industry, and one employee made a comment about how women dress on Halloween. It's not an appropriate comment. And I found it because he has a public profile, and I said, do you know how many women golfers are out there? And how do you think they would feel about this? I understand this is a private account, but you have your company listed as where you work. So why don't we shut that down and maybe use another name on it? Because that might have been a nice observation for you and your buddies, but not good for the brand. And the owner wanted to fire him. And I said, well, that's just stupid. He's a good employee, and you just have to educate him on why he shouldn't do things. And when his wife saw it, oh my gosh. I was like, get a lawyer, buddy. So that's, I agree, educate, you know, get some legal counsel and educate.
Terrific, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah?
All right, so like mobile devices are kind of new a little bit, and then like our new generation, perhaps like be more rampant, that people will be more like knowledgeable about technology. How do you guys feel about like piracy and stuff?
Piracy? Well, this is probably good for David.
Yeah.
It's a great question for Dave.
Yeah.
How do we feel about piracy?
David, can you grab the mic?
I was thinking first.
He's sweating right now.
Yeah,
And there's
exactly.
millions on piracy.
Yeah, there's. I think I take the position of everybody in the world. There's no good answer to it, for one thing, and there's no general uniform answer to it, because you talk to everybody say the same. Different things. Content producers will want to protect their intellectual property, and those people are obviously a little bit more concerned with privacy. But there's also the other side of the fence that think we should literate and allow people to have access to content. So it's a conflicting force. I don't think it's solely applicable to mobile devices. It's nothing new, essentially, that's what I'm saying. And then even with the mobile devices, it doesn't change the equation or the concerns and factors around privacy. It doesn't change it. It probably amplifies it, but I don't think it changes the basic fundamentals that all of us, different companies, different interests, different perspectives that are used to apply towards privacy. So again, I kind of non-committal answer, but I think that is kind of the state of things it is today.
And I would just add, I do think that, you know, we had the SOPA. Do you know what SOPA is? S-O-P-A. I think that people get a little, they want to go extreme, you know, when we start thinking about content, because content curation is huge online. If you, a lot of times as a small or medium business, I tell people, you know, create content, show your expertise, engage, but you don't have to actually create a lot of content. You just have to be able to find the material that your people want in your industry and be able to curate that content and bring it to them. What I mean is, if I'm talking to business owners, I might pull in Wall Street Journal and CNN and share all this great news that's out there. So I want to be able to go and find the content, and just like you write a paper, I'm going to source where I got it, add my own opinion, and then be able to share it. So sometimes we go extreme with what is actual piracy. And there's a new site, well, not new, but Pinterest. Are any of you on Pinterest? The women, it's like crack to women. That's inappropriate, but it is. So Pinterest, just like Flickr and StumbleUpon, I don't know if you know those networks, well, StumbleUpon more, we're having a problem because when I pin a picture and I put it on my board, did I just take and steal that picture? But it links back to the picture. But actually, if you took it from the other dirty word for David, Google, if you took it from Google and put it on there, it's actually not linking back to the source. It's linking back to where I found it on Google. So really, you know, I think it's always going to be an issue. And as a marketer, I want you to share as much of my client's material as possible, but I don't want to lose the source. I don't want people to forget where it came from. So what we do is we embed things in so you can find where you got it from. But piracy and hackers, I always wanted to grow up to be a hacker. I'm going to admit it right now, are things that keep us on our toes, really, and help us kind of grow and figure out, you know, hey, you want to steal it? I must be making something good. I just got to stop you from stealing it. Yeah, kind of thing.
And then, sorry, so maybe one more bit on that, because the other equation is what really constitutes privacy. There are things that people claim rights to, right? So I think in general, we just say, if I say I own something, I don't want you to steal it, so just don't, right? Like if I say this is mine, please don't drink it, right? Even though it's just a cup of water, it doesn't mean anything. But if I lay claims to it, if I claim rights to it, then don't steal it. There are things, I think there are models for everything. There are a lot of free content out there. YouTube videos, a lot of them are free. But there's, as we know, there's also a lot of companies today that browse YouTube to make sure that none of the rights protected content actually show up there, and they will work with YouTube to remove those content. So often you see that this video has been removed because the owner, right? You often see that on YouTube. So there's both opposing forces to it, but we do have to tread carefully, understanding that maybe not so much of a rights issue, but just the fact that somebody created something and they want to claim rights to it. If that's the case, respect that right and don't violate those rights that they're claiming. But everything else, but people do have open source rights and everything. So there are a lot of different models to have access and create content in the world. I think there's a room for everything. But we could live everybody can live together happily without infringing on privacy. Piracy.
There's one thing too. I think Coca-Cola did a really good job. Sometimes you get overzealous fans, right? I love Coca-Cola, so I started a Facebook page. And the Coke Facebook page, I think when Coke found out about it, had over 1 million fans. So it was 2 guys that started their love of Coca-Cola, and they started this page. Coke had 2 things that they could do. One, they could take the page away from these fans, right? Or they could support the fans and then step in and work with them. And as a brand, you have to really look at this. So what should I do? Well, these guys are passionate, okay? I'm a sports fan. I'm a football fan. I'm pretty passionate. I could create a page for my team. I'll tell you that right now. But they were really passionate. So if you go in and squash them, how are the other people going to feel that we're supporting this page and supporting this brand? So they didn't. What they did is they brought the 2 guys into Coke. They took them around the plant, did videos. These guys were stoked. They were so happy. They were going crazy. So the page blew up. Good blow up. It got better. And then Coke brought in 2 representatives to work with these guys and say, we just want to make sure that our brand stays intact. You guys have full run, but we may come in and just maneuver you a bit. So that was a nice way where technically they're taking over Coca-Cola. They don't own that. But then Coca-Cola said, you're pretty passionate about it. We appreciate it, so let's work together. So, what David's saying is, you have to kind of walk that line. You have to figure out what the best thing is for the brand and for the people who love the brand.
What's the logic behind pricing apps? Some are free, some are $30.
Well,
question.
Okay, so it depends on the client, right? You lay out a capital investment, and sometimes they're like, we want to get it back quickly. It's a very expensive app that we made. Let's charge $5.99. I've seen apps in the thousands of dollars. They're out there. It depends on what the app does or what it's for. Or there's the freemium model where you get it for free, and then you constantly try ways to get them to spend money through in-app purchasing. So you get it in their hands, and that seems to be working really well for a lot of our clients. An example that I could pull an example, Madden 2012 and 2013 right now, coming out soon. We did the game guide for Random House Publishing, a division of them. We've been doing a lot of stuff for those guys, but this one particular app, it has a freemium model. So you get 1 team for free when you download this app, and it might not be your team. It could be like Chicago, and you're like, I want Indianapolis. So you have to buy in Indianapolis, and then you're like, well, my buddy's playing the Raiders, so I got to now get the Raiders because I want to see what he's up to. So it's a game guide to help you through. And it's 99 cents, 99 cents, 99 cents. But if you buy all the teams, it's $9.99. So what they've been finding is people will buy 3 teams, and they're like, darn it, I got to buy them all now. So then now they're getting like $13 out of 1 client on this app. Great business model. They've sold hundreds of thousands of these downloads. They're killing it on this app. This is like their most successful single app for game guides, that is.
Sounds like iTunes.
Yeah. iTunes is doing great as well on this whole thing because they take 30% of everything in-app or what you sell up front. So keep that in mind. If you're selling something, you're only getting 70% of that on the back end.
And I actually I use a lot of free apps. I try out everything. This phone has crashed, I can't tell you how many times. But what I like about apps, and especially business apps, because we work a lot with businesses trying to do business mobilely. And we're starting a co-working space, and we're bringing them in to show them how they can do business everywhere. But what I find is I like to try out an app, especially a business app, and then I will upgrade for more features. So one, for the people who started the app, but they need their money back somehow. And two, you know, it's brought me in, I like it, and then I just want a few more features. So when I'm looking at business apps, I will definitely pay for them. And Angry Birds I'll pay because I'm tired of the ads. So a great way is to put ads everywhere, and it gets in the way of me killing those pigs, and I will pay to get rid of those ads to kill more pigs. So
we're nearing the end of our time. I'm going to send a final question to all of you. We've now talked about killing pigs.
As far as how you use the native UI and how it ties into certain things, but more and more people have figured out how to push it to the envelope, and we have a couple projects where we're going as far as possible with this HTML5, and we have, you know, a project that's going to, you know, it's scheduled for 9 months of development to really kind of expand and take it to the next level. It makes a lot of sense, especially covering, you know, when they come to you, they're like, should we do Android or iOS? And I'm all, well, what about Microsoft? It's coming next. They're like, well, do we do all three? Which one should we start? And it may make business sense for them to only do iOS. May make business sense for them to do natively iOS and Android at this point. But to really cover the bases, right now, HTML5 is becoming a really smart solution for clients. And again, it comes down to a needs analysis. You decide what makes sense for that particular business model, and then you try and consult accordingly.
go ahead.
That's great. So one more thing on the technology side, I think it's just like your question about QR codes earlier. NFC is something really interesting that's near-field communication. So we can manufacture tags at the price point of really cheap and then stick them onto anywhere in the physical world and use it the similar way as QR codes as kind of a connection between the physical world and the digital world. But QFC are much easier to use than QR code. I'm sorry, NFC, much easier to use than QR codes. You could tap a device and suddenly you get some content information. You can tap to pay. So there's a lot of scenarios that are coming down in the mobile world for the use of NFC chips.
Real quick on that, how far along are you guys with your next devices, like to really integrate and make sure NFC? I love NFC myself. It's sad to see that it didn't make the iPhone 5. Everybody's like, oh, and Apple waits usually till it's accepted by everyone. I mean, Google Wallet, you go into a store, you see it every now and like Jamba Juice has it, and I'm like, how many times do you get to use this thing? He's like, twice a month. You know, it's like it's not there yet, but it's coming.
Yeah.
And I mean, I even have like a card holder now on my phone, so I don't have to carry anything but my phone, but one day it'll just be a tap, and we all hope in the development world that it gets there faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that's going to explode very soon. Right now, just like you said, the consumer or the business adoption around these things aren't that quite there yet, so you don't see a lot of use cases for these things, but I think we're getting there. And thank you for the opportunity to advertise ourselves. So I can't say anything yet, but definitely I think next Friday or the next following week we're going to be making some major announcements, and we'll hear more about those things.
Great.
Yeah, can I get your card? No. I'm going to go away from tech, and I'm going to say don't forget about mobile ads. You know, Google just came out with their earnings, and they're low but better. And right now they do kind of own the mobile ad space, and we know how people interact on their phones if you guys are Yelpers, and how people will look for a restaurant, and 65% of them will go to a restaurant that they've looked for on their phone because I'm in the area. So for small and medium businesses, mobile ads right now are cheaper than doing your basic web ad, and you should look at that as far as a cost-effective way to kind of get to people who are using these devices in your area. So mobile ads, definitely keep looking at those. Great.
Are mobile ads cheaper than Facebook?
Facebook needs to make so much money. You know what? Facebook ads don't have to be expensive if you do them the right way, but they have messed with the algorithms, so now nobody sees your content unless you're doing a promotion. But and I hope that he sees this, Zuckerberg. All right. So anyway, Facebook ads actually don't have to be expensive. It's how you do it, and when you do ads, you have to make sure that you're doing, you try a few different types of ads and what you're promoting, and yet, again, you're kind of playing with it. This is that Geek Cat again, and watching the analytics and how they do. So not necessarily more expensive, it just depends on how you do it.
All right, I'm getting the high sign for us to wrap up. So I want to thank our panelists. I think that was a very, again, ranging from pigs to Facebook ads. It's a very wide range of topics that we covered today. So thank you all for a good conversation. I want to again thank our panel sponsors, AT&T and US Bank, and our track sponsor. We have an empty chair here, kind of Obama style, for Carlos from Vons. So thank you to Carlos and Vons. And want to give just a round of applause to our panelists. I think you guys did a great job.